Hello, and welcome to another episode of Success Coaching for a Better World. My name is Manny Nowak, and as always, it's a pleasure to be with you. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you haven't, it's great to have you, and hopefully you'll come back. Today, we're going to touch an issue that's probably not going to leave some of you happy, but the bottom line is real leaders walk the walk. I share a story with you from July 26th from our Daily Bread. During the summer of international sports scandals involving gambling and substance abuse, two athletes were applauded for their character as much as for their professional accomplishment. A record crowd of 75,000 cheered Cal Ripken Jr. and Tony Gwynn during their 2007 induction into the National Hall of Fame. Whether we like it or not, Ripken said, as big leaguers, we are role models. The only question is, will it be positive or will it be negative? 2 days earlier from our Daily Bread, there was another quote. The preacher was speaking tongue-in-cheek when he complained, "My wife is absolutely unreasonable. She actually expects me to live everything that I preach." It's so much easier to tell someone what's right than to practice it personally. And finally, a good example is so much more valuable than good advice. How are you doing as the leader of your company, your organization, or your family? Are you walking so loudly that no one can hear what you're saying? Are you telling everyone the right things to do, expecting to hold them to this high standard, and yet you're not following your own rules? Speaking recently with a leader, he was talking about how the standards of this country have totally gone in the gutter. How everyone wants to get away with things, do less, lay back. And at the end of our conversation, I asked that leader, well, what are you going to do the rest of today now that we're done? Oh, I'm going to sneak out and play golf this afternoon. No one will know. As the leader, you are always on display. Like it or not, it doesn't matter. You are always on display. And it really doesn't matter whether you have one employee, 1,000 employees, or 10,000 employees. It doesn't matter whether you're at work, you're at play, or you're at home. If people look to you as the leader, you're on display. And you're always on that stage. Everything you do sets the standard for how people operate. If you do it, then you're saying it's okay. None of us, of course, is perfect. And that's just the bottom line. Even as leaders, we try awful hard, but we're not perfect. Yet, we have to work harder than anyone else. Further, when we make a mistake, we have to admit that mistake and we have to deal with the heat. That's the only way we're going to teach those teams that work for us that this is what we expect. It's the only way we're going to raise the standard in our organization to that high a level. It's the only way, face it, deal with it, and move forward. I'd like to share with you today 10 simple things I want you to spend this week thinking about as you set the walk for your team. Number one, if you want your team to be in by 8, then you need to be at your desk by 7. I know people are always complaining that everybody leaves, the clock turns 5 and they're out, But you know what? You want your team to work till 6, you want your team to work later, you need to work till the office or the factory or the place is clear. If you want your staff to take time with their people, then you need to set that example by coaching and taking time with them, because that sets the pace. If you want your team to learn how to watch money and be careful, then don't go around wasting it. I often hear this one, number 5. The reports I get from my team are so bad. And the question is, what are the reports like that you give them? Because you see, if you want great stuff from your team, then you better be giving them great stuff. And I know that some of you out there don't want to hear this. Life goes on. If you want your team to treat customers with compassion and empathy, then when you take the role or when you have to deal with the customer, especially when they're watching, you better not exhibit anything but what you're looking for them to do. If you don't want your team making personal calls during business hours, sitting on their personal cell phone, what are you doing? And I don't care if you're the boss. I don't care if you're the owner. I'm just saying, if you want the example followed, you need to set it. Just like if you don't want your team surfing on the internet and playing games on the web, then don't let me walk in your office and see you doing it. In fact, don't do it. My desk seems pretty good, not as good as I like it, but again, if you want a clean desk, if you want to be organized and you want your team organized, you set the example. I love that, because I often walk in and the guy says, you know, have you walked out there and seen the sloppiness of my team? And I just say, I looked at the office and say, well, who's setting the example? And finally, you know I deal with this one all the time, attitude. If you want your team to have a great attitude, guess what? The way you walk is the way your team will walk. It's the way your family will walk. It's the way all those you lead will walk. Great leaders create great leaders. Poor leaders create poor leaders. You're always on display. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant. So set the right pace. Set the right example. Make sure you are not walking so loudly that no one can hear what you're saying. This is Manny Nowak. Success coaching for a better world. As always, my pleasure to be with you. If you want to talk to me, call me. 856-358-4021. That's 856-358-4021. On the web at www.mannynowak.com. And that's MANNYNOWAK. MannyNowak.com. Want to email me? It's Manny. MANNY at MANNYNOWAK.com. This week, go out. Start walking the walk. You will be amazed at the difference that in just a few weeks you will see in your team. Real leaders walk the walk. Thank you for being with us today.